Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Soul Goals Podcast. I'm Dawn, and I'm so glad you're joining me today. This podcast is dedicated to bringing people's stories to light and hearing their journeys of inspiration and self-growth. But it's also about connection and knowing that you are not alone. Each week, I get the chance to sit down and talk with an amazing soul, someone I've had the blessing of either meeting or following in my life. I am so grateful for my guests. Their openness and their vulnerability, it is unmatched as we share heartfelt conversations together about both their challenges and their triumphs. I hope that you can grab some inspiration and connection from my guests and their stories. I know I certainly have with each conversation. What an honor to sit with these brave souls. Everyone has a story, folks. And every story matters. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Soul Goals. My name is Dawn, and today I am joined by an amazing lady, hailing originally from the Tennessee area, Nashville, Tennessee area. Yeah, Go Vols, right? Is that still in your heart? Go Vols. You know. She's no longer in Nashville. She has progressed westward, and she is now living in Ojai, California, with her wife. And I think you guys have two. You have a kitty cat and a pup.
We do, yes.
Aww.
I'm sure you'll probably hear him sometime during the interview.
Well, that's good. You'll probably hear one of mine as well. So there you are. Everybody, welcome to the episode, the incomparable Tisha Morris.
Oh, thank you so much, Dawn, for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad you were able to take some time today. I know you're super, extremely busy, but I hail you as one of the most interesting people that I've ever met, just from the sole fact that you are, we were just talking about this a little bit before I hit the record, you're able to be really grounded in your logic, but you also pull in such amazing creativity and how you bind the two and how you teach people how to do that. I think that's it's obviously something that a craft that you've worked on for a long time. However, I do think there's a little bit of a gift and an art to that just comes naturally. So I'm really excited to hear about your unfolding and everything that goes along with it. So
yes, I'm excited.
Yeah, so originally from Nashville, right?
That's right.
And you moved to Ojai. Well, you moved to California before you moved to Ojai. There's been a kind of a series of movements in there, but you're there, live there with your wife, Rachel. You and I met in Nashville. I think we were teaching yoga at the time, right?
Yes.
Do you still teach?
Days. I don't. It's weird. As soon as I moved to California, which is like yoga Mecca, I stopped teaching. I'm still an avid class goer. So it's still definitely part of my lifestyle.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And I'm not teaching any longer either. So that's really funny. But I would consider California as being, the Mecca of yoga, if you will. But you also went to law school in Memphis, then went to design school. So there, right in and of itself, when I learned that about you, I'm like, whoa, that's logical, creative,
and illogical.
I think it's amazing. But before we go into kind of how that all transpired, what made you decide to go into law as a profession? What was your drive behind that?
It was a couple of things, and none of which were actually to be a lawyer.
Okay. All right.
Law is one of those fields. I think it's kind of a catch-all for those who, number one, don't know what they want to be when they grow up, or don't know what they don't know because the jobs haven't been created yet, or our world hasn't stepped into that yet. Yeah. And so it's a nice way to put off 3 more years of the real life or the real world of working. Right.
Okay.
But it was also at the time was when John Grissom had just come out with the firm, which takes place in Memphis, and it was like a first law grad, and I've always actually wanted to be a writer. Is actually what at the heart of my hearts is what's there, and a legal thriller perhaps. I have a lot of genres I play around with, but and so I was like, well, I don't really know what I want to be, but at least having a law degree can always, nice to have in your back pocket or front pocket or some pocket.
Correct.
And it'll be a nice segue to be a writer one day. So
Right.
that's pretty much where I am right now, is that I'm closer to the one day.
Okay.
Um,
Good. That's
but
good.
writing, as you know, I've got several nonfiction books. But
Yes.
writing is definitely the through line. And I was always drawn to writing, and law is kind of one of those things. If you're going to be practical with writing, you kind of go in that direction.
Okay. All
So
right.
it was never for the purpose of like fighting or, being a litigator or any of those strong draws toward law. Yeah.
Were your parents like, tell me about them. They were not lawyers, were they?
No, it kind of was not, it kind of came out of left field for them. They were more in the medical. My dad was a pharmacist.
Okay.
His whole side was in the medical community, and which I had no desire whatsoever. Like I knew, one of the best ways of knowing what you want to do is knowing what you don't want to do. And so
Yeah.
that whole field of the world, I had no interest in. And then later, of course, when I took up healing work, I was like, well, actually, this is kind of preventative medicine. Well, not kind of, it is preventative medicine, and
For sure.
that part of it I like. It's the the prescriptions and the surgery part that I don't like.
Yes. Yeah. I get you. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I think well, when you finished law school, you actually ended up going into design. And this is, you just sent out, you do these regular emails, which I love getting, because they're these short little blurbs that are just these truth bombs that just I love them. I think your writing is very succinct and it's very direct, but yet it has a very applicable feel to it. So everybody can find what they need and what they value out of that writing. So I appreciate that so much in a world where we're fed so much information. So when Tisha's emails come in, I'm like, oh, gotta check it out. Your last mailer that you were talking, that you said, and you talked about in your first, I'm going to read it here. In your first law job, you became the office's official dream interpreter, because before that, people in law school were asking you to hang pictures for them on their wall. So I, I mean, I wouldn't think that anybody's going to ask me to hang a picture on my wall or on their wall for them, but I like, how did that come about?
Yeah, and that's another kind of a principle I've learned. It's like finding out what questions people ask you the most, even if they're on topic or not, and you'll start to see a theme,
Mhm.
And that's what I noticed, and I happen to love hanging pictures
Okay.
as well, like the artistry of
Well,
it.
I could, you come back to visit Nashville. I really could use you through my house. Just saying. Yeah.
So, again, like even though I'm practicing law, people are like asking me for non-law things, even though I prided myself in being a pretty good lawyer,
Yeah.
but I stood out for other things, it appears. But yeah, I was assistant attorney general for Tennessee for a few years, and I would have like a floor lamp, kind of like this one behind me, which is non-traditional for a typical state office. It's usually
Right.
the blaring fluorescence.
Right.
And I would have the overheads off, actually, like I do right now.
Yeah.
And it just created this, like, I guess, this safe container, and people would come in and sit in my office and start
Yeah.
telling me about their dreams. And I do have a really good knack of interpreting dreams.
Okay.
And so anyway, it was fun. It was a lot funner than practicing law at the time.
Okay. Well, did you like that knack of interpreting dreams? I mean, again, so you're in law school. I think you're very logical, because you're a smart cookie to go to law school and to graduate and finish all of that, because that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. So, I mean, the right side and the left side, your brain, that you got one side that's the analytical, one side that's the hugely creative. I feel like if I look at my kids, I can say one of them has more of this, one of them has more of that. But if I look at your career and kind of your path, like I think you're pretty 50-50 on both. That's pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, and that I do think that as well. It sometimes makes things a little bit challenging. Of like, do I be the creative, or do I be the business person of the creative? And I've learned that it has to be both for me.
Okay.
I always have my own creative projects going, in addition to helping people with the business part of getting their projects out in the world. And the fact
Right.
that I know both sides helps me meet people wherever they are, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So your intention to go to design school after law school, What were you planning on doing with that? I mean, obviously, you're going to do more than just hang pictures,
Right.
right? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
assuming. But what was were you like, okay, I'm just going to put the law over here and I'm going to like the writing and I'm going to go into more of an aesthetic kind of situation.
Yeah.
What made you go that direction?
So I had by then I'd had two clerkships with judges, which was another great way of putting off the real world for a few years. And it was my first real job out of law school when I was like, this is not fun.
Yeah. Okay.
And I had clerked for a bankruptcy judge and so I kind of fallen into bankruptcy, not literally.
Not literally. No. No.
And kind of became this strange enough, this bankruptcy expert
Oh wow.
because of all my judicial experience.
Hmm.
And but it's like, it's not like certainly not glamorous and not that fun either.
Right.
So I was just like, what is it all for? And
Right. Right.
so I immediately was like, okay, I got to find something out. This is not what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And this was around the same time that I realized I was gay. And so my mind was kind of just opening up in ways that that I had not experienced before. And so I had met a friend, a guy who was in interior design school, and he had me help him with a project of like videotaping and stuff. And so I was like, this is actually really cool. And he had like his design boards, and I was like, this is really awesome. And
Yeah.
my mom actually had a really great knack for design, and she designed their dream home. And so it was in my lexicon.
Okay.
But it certainly wasn't anything I thought about doing in undergrad.
Yeah.
And so I was going through I was going through my divorce, a pretty difficult time. And I was at this bar one night and just in a really low point of just like, what am I doing with my life? I'm not happy. And this guy had just turned 21. And just to show you his age or his immaturity, or the lack of wisdom.
Yeah.
And I was like lamenting to him, and he says, "Well, what do you dream about at night?" And I said, "Well, it's funny you asked that. I'd been having these crazy dreams of these interior design spaces that were unlike anything I'd ever seen in a magazine." And I was like, "Well, about interior design?" And he was like, "Well, that's what you need to do. I dream about flying, and I'm going to go be a pilot." It was like, it was like this messenger, like it just dropped down.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Here's this dude in this bar that's probably 3 sheets to the wind, but he's speaking some real truth to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I researched and in the next week enrolled at Watkins College of Art and Design in Nashville, and they had a night program in interior design. So I continued practicing law to pay for everything, and did school at night for 3 years. It was very difficult. And your question is a good one, and I probably should have thought more about it. Of what am I actually going to do with this?
Okay. All right.
This is why you're the life coach.
Just a question. It's all good.
I had all intents and purposes of becoming an interior designer. But about 3/4 of the way or halfway through the program, I was like, oh, shoot, this isn't what I thought I was signing up for either. It was extremely technical. Like it was actually more technical or analytical minded than law was.
That is what I have heard from other people. That yes, I mean, you think that creative side, but you have to have the logical side. That's why I was like, oh, well, you would have both of those married together would be really great for you to have it working. But I have heard the same thing. Very technical.
Yeah. And so anyway, when I started looking at job opportunities, I realized I was going to be starting at minimum wage basically. And I was like, I don't know that I can do this.
Yeah. Well, coming from where you were and how much school you had, how much work you had put into where you had gotten to.
Yeah.
I could totally see that.
So the silver lining is it led me to Feng Shui. And so around that time I was getting into yoga and energy healing. And again, my mind was expanding. And my third eye was expanding. Everything was expanding, and started to understand energy basically energy work in spaces. And so what I began to experience is, and I started having an energy healing practice. I was starting to teach yoga.
Yeah.
People kept asking me again, what do people ask you for? They kept asking about the Feng Shui, and
Yeah.
I could not shake it off of me if I tried.
Oh, wow.
And so it just became like, it's just like, it's basically what we're vibrating out into
Right.
to our auras, what people come to us for.
Right.
And that was clearly what, I mean, I had no intentions of making Feng Shui a career. And then, 5 books later, I was like, I guess I did.
It's happening. 5 books on Feng Shui. And so in design school, was that a an element that they talked about, or was that just something that you innately kind of looked up and researched, or just kind of knew yourself?
Yeah, we definitely did not talk about it into design school. It came into my awareness when I bought a home in East Nashville that needed a complete renovation. And I'd fallen in love with this home. It was actually a little one of the Spanish, little Hollywood style Spanish bungalows that one of the architects in that area had done for a few years, that are kind of rare. But in hindsight, they're very similar to the houses out here in California.
Yeah. Again, another thing, you're emanating where you're going to end up.
Right. And so as I was renovating this house, I started noticing correlating aspects within myself being renovated, and actually seeing direct correlations to like the electrical system, our nervous system, the plumbing, and our emotions. And I literally, through literal changing things, and also through my dreams, the dreams were telling me information as well. So I was writing all this down, and I was like, this is going to be a book one day.
Yeah.
And it ended up being my book, Mind, Body, Home. And
that was your first book.
It was my second book, even though it was the first book that I started writing.
Got it.
It feels like my first book, because it's kind of like my first baby.
Yeah. And, it's interesting you said that. It's the first thing you birthed, basically.
Yeah.
It's your first realization about all of that. Wow.
So understanding basically, Feng Shui isn't necessarily symbols of the home, but where the overlaps is energy of the home, and how changing things in your house can change things in your life. It being a kind of a second skin to our energy field. And that's really where the magic of Feng Shui takes place, is, changing things changes us, and vice versa. And we're in this kind of relationship with our home, and, kind of like mind body medicine of like, if you're stressed, you're going to have a stomach ache. Well, the stomach is, a physical expression of the mental emotional, where our home does the same thing. If things go too far, it will start taking on those expressions as well.
Yes. I can totally attest to that. And I've had talks with clients about their home being like their safe space. Like our homes, especially if you're in it, like if you think about, you're in a job that you're not really feeling fulfilled at, or you're in a lower point with your personal life or relationships outside of your home, you want to come home to a place that feeds you, right?
Yes.
That feels like it's a soft place to land, if you will, and where the energy kind of flows. So, I told my younger daughter today, I was like, oh, I'm talking to my friend Tisha from California today. She's a Feng Shui expert. Because I'm telling you, you're an expert. Everybody needs to know. Tisha Morris is the Feng Shui expert. She knows her stuff innately, obviously, as we're learning, but also she's a study of it. She does great. And I said to Kate, I was like, oh, I'm talking to Tisha. Oh, what are you guys talking about? Because she loves California. And I said, we're going to talk a little bit about her Feng Shui practice. And she's like, her who practice? What? So a lot of people don't know what Feng Shui represents. What you basically said is it's the flow of the energy through the house and how things manifest in the house. And by moving certain elements and shifting certain things in our environment, that makes us feel better. Like I just bought flowers, at the store earlier because it makes me feel good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
you just summed it up so perfectly.
Oh,
so
okay.
yes.
I'll write the intro on your next book.
Yes,
Even though I
please.
don't really know what I'm talking about. I'm just going what you're saying. But also it's a feeling too.
That's right. I mean, everything in our world, our relationships, our job, everything is a expression of our energy.
Yeah.
And so, and how we feel, and how we feel, good or bad, and everything in between, is going to be a determinant. So, for example, in your office, there's a power position that you want to sit in, and that gives you more energy. And so whether a client or anyone ever walks in your office is irrelevant, because you are the power of your destiny, so to speak.
I love
And
that. Yeah.
and so that's how just these shifts can make a difference, because everything starts and ends with ourselves.
Yeah.
um
What do you
so
think? And this is totally off the line of questions that I had sent you, but what do you think, or do you see as being the biggest issue that people have in their homes that bogs energy down, or that makes them feel that they could be doing different or placing differently, whether it's a room they need to adjust, or something that elements that they need to move around in their environment? What do you see as being the biggest, most popular thing that needs to be shifted for people?
100% clutter.
Clutter. Oh, that's another one of your books.
Yes.
God.
That's why I wrote a whole book on clutter called Clutter Intervention, because of that question you just asked.
Okay. Clutter.
Yes. So,
And
and so yeah, what I begin to see in my Feng Shui practice is, when I come to someone's home, they're like, what can I add? Can I add a plant? Can I add, crystals? And like, no, it's what you need to remove.
take it away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, similar to yoga or energy work, it's about it's like getting the kinks out, being able to move, let the energy flow. And so clutter is just like tight stuff, like what it builds up in your muscles. What is it?
The lactic acid.
Lactic acid. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like the lactic acid in your body, or the blocked meridians, if you're thinking about acupuncture.
Yeah.
And so it's stagnant energy that's blocking the flow.
Yeah. Do you find when you go into clients' homes that have that issue that they are very hesitant to move that?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes they're like, I'm ready. And that's really a personality type of those who are just like want to dig their heels and things,
Yeah.
versus those who are like, yeah, do whatever, I'm good.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah. I mean, I could see, I could have friends on both sides of the coin for sure
Yeah.
on that one. Another thing that you said, and this is another great quote of yours in the last email that you sent out was, and I'm going to read it too, so I don't get it wrong. We have to know what our container is in order to be free of it. So we have to know, and that I think that applies to more than just feng shui and the environment
Mhm.
and the house again that you're talking about. But if we think about you as a person and the different elements in your life and the different occupations that you have collected, because I feel like you have pieces of it that you are weaving into every occupation that you do.
Mhm.
So how do you know when you have to empty something out of your container to be able to be open for something new? Is it a feeling? Is it
Mm.
an understanding? Is it a I'm sick of this, I want to do something different? Or
I think integration is probably the best to find one word. And what I observed, and this is actually what I learned after writing Clutter Intervention, because after doing workshops and stuff, when people had an item that they were having a hard time letting go of, what I realized is they just needed integration of whatever that item held for them. So, for example, if it were a memory from college of having a great time and being fun and carefree, then it's the integration of that energy in their current life that they're really hanging on to or wanting. And the physical item is just an empty piece of material.
yeah, it doesn't hold the experience for them necessarily, but they have
It
to.
has until the integration.
Okay. Yeah.
The oneness. So this item becomes me,
Yeah.
and I'm now integrated. And now I can go have fun. Maybe not do keg stands. And that's the integration. You're doing it in a healthy way. Now you're going out and, playing trivia with your friends or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
So we're getting a little bit like philosophical kind of on the energy side of things. And
I know.
I love it. I mean, that's what I do. It's my gig, it's my jam. And I know it is for you too. If you had to break that down, that integration, how would you say to somebody, say you walked into somebody's house here in Middle Tennessee and you're back visiting that hired you to come in to walk through it. And they're like, what do you mean by I got to integrate? I don't want to get rid of that trophy that I won when I was 10 years old because that means something because my dad gave that to me. So that's what you're speaking of. Then how do they integrate that experience? What is
great question. And I never used the I word. Anyway, I do exactly what you just kind of role played it out for me. They tell me the story.
Okay.
They need a witness for the story.
Yes.
And that's the magic of what happens. So it was either, whether it's one-on-one or a workshop atmosphere, them telling the story of this was the trophy that I won and my dad was there and it was such a great moment and blah, 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 blah. Okay. I'm ready to let it go.
Wow.
It's like magic. It's magic. We all need witnesses to our stories.
Yeah. And I guess we're in such a hurry to remember and think about what we're going to say next to someone that's speaking instead of really absorbing what it is that they're saying and being a witness to them. So okay, that's what you're doing for them, along with then the understanding of this is how the energy flows and this is what we need to move if we're taking it to the next level. Do you find that are you still practicing Feng Shui regularly with people or because I know you're not?
Yeah. The last 5-7 years, so I have a Feng Shui school that starting from 2013 up until just this last year, I had a Feng Shui school where I've trained hundreds and hundreds of students to kind of do that work. And that's been a real joy. Once I moved to LA, the teaching and the writing books about Feng Shui became my main thing with regards to Feng Shui.
Yeah.
And now entertainment law is taking most of my attention.
Yes. So it's a full circle for you.
Yes.
You're coming back into the law aspect again now, but you're also creating that, and here with the Feng Shui and with the energy work that you do, the yin and the yang, that's just another, if creativity is the yin, then business is the yang.
Yes.
That's another mic drop bomb right there. Right. So you're back to where your roots started. Did you ever think that you would be revisiting law again?
No.
Well, I mean, no, not as a bankruptcy attorney, which is a valid profession, but not for your creative outlet for you.
Yeah, it took a different kind of law doing it in my own way. Having been self-employed for 10, 12, 15 years, it has been an adjustment just to come around to the identity of being a lawyer after spending a lot of years letting it go. And speaking of decluttering, I mean, one of my books was talking about me letting go of my lost legal business suit. So it was a lot of letting go. But maybe perhaps this is the best example of what integration is. Letting go of the past way of doing things in order to integrate and come into a new way of doing things. So the idea it was literally almost overnight. It was, remember the Ruth Bader Ginsburg documentary that came out several years ago, whether you remember or not. It was pretty amazing. It was before she died. Yeah. And I just came out of that theater, just like streams of tears rolling down my face of realizing how I'd kind of taken for granted this law license. Yeah. As far as, and it was around the time of the Me Too movement in Hollywood and women, obviously the taking advantage of women becoming more public. And really realizing, and so I'd also kind of hit my own ceiling with the work with Feng Shui and also with being a self-help kind of whatever. Yeah. And And I really wanted to like, I can write books. Yes, that's great. But I can also help other people write books and get their work out into the world. I can do both.
Yes.
And that became exciting. And logistics were, trying to figure out how to get to where I am now. Took a number of years.
Mhm.
But I'm really enjoying it.
What made you move to LA? What was the initial draw to go to California?
I had always wanted to be in the sunshine, the West Coast, like all the things you associate with California
Yeah.
was always kind of a carrot dangling.
Okay.
And I've also always been drawn to the idea of books to screen, and in the entertainment industry, not as an entertainer myself, but like I've always just like loved the Oscars and movies. I think movies have been the most profound, one of the most profound shifts in my consciousness over
Yeah.
my entire life. And so I was just always drawn, but I had no idea and not really any specific goal of being in the industry, except for I do hope to write a book one day that does go to screen.
Okay.
Um, the whole time it turns out that it was to be an entertainment lawyer.
Yeah. So you're right back to, and that wasn't, so I'm unfamiliar with law in terms of, did you have to specialize when you were in school for any reason? Or once you got that degree, you could then expand it upon multiple different things. Like you said,
Correct.
initially you were interested in writing, but that you ended up working for the attorney general as well.
Mhm.
So a lot of different, you got a lot of different training in there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you don't have to have any specialization. That being said, entertainment law is its own little animal, and a lot of you have to kind of know the biz, so to
Yeah.
speak, and the terminology and all that. Which so I did. I really learned as much as I could through courses and books and talking to people and all of that. And I'd
Yeah.
had some of my own experiences. Had been um, shopped around to be casted on some shows. So I had some experience as talent, the talent side of in the industry
Yeah.
myself. And then of course, publishing. Publishing is also an area of law. I kind of won my niche because of my own experiences as an author.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was another thing I wanted to talk about next, actually, because that was how you and I reconnected. I had an idea for I had an idea for a blog. I had an idea for a book. Tisha and I had this great hour, and it was like an hour and a half, like virtual session from Nashville to LA, and talked about all these different things. And she's like, "Okay, so oh, and I'm just another caveat is that your wife does astrology, and she's
Yes.
really, really good at it." Really good, really good at it. And you have a little piece of that you bring into some of these private consultations that you've done. And you did with mine, and you hit some stuff, boom, right on the head for creativity stuff for me and where it's going. And here we are, the soul goals. I remember talking to you about it.
Yes, I remember.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness. But the whole creating what you want from a place of not pushing it. Because I look at you as being somebody that is allowing it to unfold, right? And I'm sure that there's frustration and there's challenges, as you know, as you can totally attest to for life in general and the things that you do. Um, but if I watch what your deal has unfolded, like it's it's always the outsider looking in. It feels like it's ebbed and flowed very magically, if you will, and you don't push, you just allow. Tell me how you've gotten to just allow, because I'm like we're going to make it work. We're going to make it work.
It's good to hear that is the impression that I have.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and I think that too, it's great because again, we're marrying that yin and that yang, that really creative side with the grounded analytical side. And you're doing that really well. The allowance of just letting the next right thing happen is something that so many of us have a hard time doing. So how do you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm just going to allow this to unfold
Yeah.
without struggling like a salmon swimming upstream?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has your perception for yourself and for me is spot on.
Okay.
Again, this is what makes you the good life coach.
Oh, no.
um, I have learned through trial and error.
Mhm.
And so I've thrown a lot of spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
I've learned that nothing comes before it's time, before you're ready. The astrology help that I have in my house, and that astrology is all about timing. And
Yes.
and so that has been a great help of knowing there's a time there, there's a time and place for most things, and you can force things. We can all force things, but the result of that's going to be forced.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be chaos almost.
Yeah.
You have that chaos and it's like, wait, what did I actually start with? Like, what am I really trying to do here?
Yeah. So
So
a lot of it. So Feng Shui is actually based in Taoism. Feng Shui comes out of Chinese medicine, and Chinese medicine comes out of Taoism. And Taoism is a philosophy. I mean, we have these phrases in our culture of going with the flow, and so those are very Taoistic ways of thinking. And so when I was writing one of my books on the 5 elements are directly from Chinese medicine. And that was a time where I had not quite learned how to go with the flow. And I was pushing. And like, I wanted life to be what I would call the fire element, with lots of spark and all kinds of things happening and joy and activity. And life kept putting me in the water, which is grief and letting go, and the yin parts of life. And every time I think I was coming out of the water, coming back into the light, so to speak, life would put me back into the water. And so I began to realize, like, oh, this is what the follow the Tao is. And as much as we want to be manifestors or whatever that we hear in popular spirituality, there is a Tao to our life, a flow. Yes. And we can only push upstream so far until we surrender and let the stream take us to where our path is meant to go.
What do you think the point of surrender was for you? If you had to choose, and you know what, maybe there's multiple points of surrender. Obviously, there's probably numerous ones that you could speak to, but is there one that you go, like the guy sitting on the bar stool there in the bar saying, you should do that. And you're like, oh, okay. Like, is there a point where you went, oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, it took death. I mean, I had several very personal deaths in my life, and you get to where your energy just can't, you can't do what you want to do, in the timing that you want to do it, in the way you want to do it. And so I guess maybe surrender is maybe not the right word. It's just maybe the feeling of defeat.
Yeah, for sure. But allowing yourself to go through that and feel it. I think that's the biggest thing and you could probably attest to this too, when you speak to people with any of your consultations that you do, whether it's writing book, like publishing with them, helping them with the authorship, all the things. I mean, they could say the same thing. It's just this whole, you're hitting a wall. When does that gate finally open up? And it goes back to the Taoism. I think you talked about following the flow and just being okay with it. Mm-hmm. But gosh, Tisha, like, that's hard.
I mean, sometimes you don't have a choice.
You're right.
But when that wave comes, you got to ride it. So when the channels are clear, you got to take advantage of it. Life doesn't give you, it's like a lot of open windows a lot of times. So when it comes, like with this podcast, like the time is here and you're riding that wave and you got to keep riding it.
Yes. Go. All right. We're riding the wave. Let's go. Yeah. My husband talks about that. Luck is where, preparation and opportunity meet.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of times we get those big things dropped in our lap, but we're too scared to act upon it. And then we're looking back and going, oh, what would have been? What if I would have? How would that been different? Do you have any of those moments?
Well, I do find that life gives you second and third and fourth chances. Mm-hmm. And so so I do believe that, and for most things that are meant to be, so to speak, on your soul's path,
yes,
it will come back around. and sometimes I think the first time it comes is just a practice round to get you in that vibration of like, what's possible and can I do this?
Yeah.
In fact, I'll give a quick story. So when the week before I was getting married to Rachel, I had a call from Live with Kelly and Ryan to be on their show,
Okay.
and it was gonna have to be like the exact week I was getting married.
Oh,
And so I had to say no, because weddings take a lot of planning, and there's like a lot to it.
yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And to be honest, I was a little. I mean, I was scared, but like
Mm.
probably like it was kind of maybe a little bit of relief of like, oh shoot,
Yeah. Oh, darn it. But it's
yeah.
like, yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Well, was it 2 years or 3 years later? And by then I had gotten a lot of new tape called tape that you use for them to see if if you're going to bomb on camera or not.
Check you out. I got it. Yeah.
And the timing was great.
Uh-huh.
And even though I was like completely nervous, I was in a more secure position or place within myself. And bam, and I did it. And so literally it came back around.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know that story. I didn't know. I mean, I knew that you had been on the show, but I didn't know that it was like you had to say no the first time. Ah,
Yeah, and it was
but
specifically for spring, so it was like a time sensitive thing where it was just had to be that week because it was like their spring fling week or something.
yeah, okay.
And so I was like, man, that was like the biggest opportunity I had to say no to, and came back
Oh,
around.
but look, I think that's the thing that we have to get comfortable with as people is knowing that if it's meant to flow to us,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to present itself again if we have to step away from it at that point for whatever reason that is. But again, gosh, that's hard to do.
It is.
Man, that's hard to do. Let's talk. You've mentioned a few of your books through our talk so far. I love it. Would you consider them self-help
Yeah,
books?
I would.
Okay. So if someone's going into the bookstore, because I love a good bookstore, I want to pull one off the shelf, but they can also get these on Amazon too. And tishamorris.com. Everybody check it out because there's multiple layers to her website and the things that she offers. Okay, so I'm putting the cart before the horse because I always do that. I'm getting excited. I want to mention I'm going to hold it up here in front of the camera. This smudge spray is magnificent. And I know if you're on the podcast where you're just listening and you can't see it, it's Earth Home Company. And you established this in 2011, it says.
That's right. Now
Yeah.
I don't own it anymore. I sold it to good friend Norma Rich Creek.
Okay.
Nashville, and she's taking it over, but it's the same formula, and it's still a product that's so near and dear to me because that's actually that product afforded me to move to California.
Well, that's amazing. And so, I mean, it's one of your children, if you will.
It is.
Really.
Yes.
It's a staple for our household. My daughter uses it in college through her apartment in her car, and she lives 10 and a half hours away. I use it all over. I use it when I travel. It's great. It's just
powerful.
another layer of the things that you have offered. The books, the 5 best-selling books that you have, which one of those? Okay, this is going to be probably a poor question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you have a favorite one?
I do, and it is Mind, Body, Home. That I was talking about my
The
first
second one.
baby. It's the second one that seems like my first one.
So what was the first one then?
The first one's Feng Shui Your Life.
Okay.
And that's through a publisher that they're actually based in Nashville, and Turner Publishing, and they've become quite big now. But at the time, they were a small publisher, and they were. I caught wind from a friend in yoga.
Okay.
She's like, "You should pitch them. They're looking for X, Y, and Z." I was like, "Okay," and came home that afternoon and banged out a proposal, and it was just like it just dropped into my lap. Honestly, yeah. I don't have no other words for it. Again, It's like what publishing is in my astrology chart. So it's something I have good luck with, and which is why I want to help other people with it.
Yes. And that's what you're actively doing right now.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. So we talked a little bit about me doing a blog and writing a book and what my intention was around all of that when we had our session together. Mm-hmm. And I remember walking away from that session going, I can write, I can do this, I can create, I can do this. So I will wager to bet that you do more, or not more, you do just as much on the authorship side of consulting, as well as this is what you do for publishing. And this is how we're
That's
going to
right.
get from A to Z where all that's concerned. So
That's right. Yeah.
yeah,
I
tell
actually have
me.
a class tomorrow, a
Okay.
2-hour class that packs in everything there is to know about the publishing industry or the publishing side of things. And
Okay.
it's going to be offered as, if people are hearing this later, it's going to be offered as a download. So it really is the business side of publishing, which gets overlooked.
Right.
But this is what I was, I think where that quote came from with the container quote of
Yeah.
like knowing the rules of what you're aiming for, which is if you're wanting to get a book published, you got to know how the game's played.
Right. Right. You
And
educate yourself. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what you aim to do, is to educate people on what that is. Do you help them with the process then as well?
I do more on the legal side, which is when like more of negotiating contracts.
Okay.
So publishing contracts, I help a lot of people out with those. If they don't have an agent, or if they don't have an agent doesn't know the legal part of things very well.
Gotcha.
So negotiating contracts, and that comes up a lot these days with hybrid publishing.
Yes.
You don't want to just sign, you don't want to just assume everything and sign.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Nowadays, yeah, you have to have your ducks in a row and kind of have your bases all covered for sure. So say someone's hearing this and they're like, I have an amazing idea for a book. It's been, rambling around in my head for the last 10 years. And they say, I'm going to give Tisha a call and I want to have a consult with her about how do I get that from here out onto my computer. Do you help with that kind of process as
Yes.
well?
So I would call it book coaching, and I do that. Yeah.
Oh, I love book
Yeah.
coaching. Yeah.
Yeah.
So authorship, publishing, entertainment law, Feng Shui expert, interior design, all the things, balancing the right side with the left side, being able to pull both of those elements, both of those sides together. I mean, I know you've explained all of your path and how you've brought that forth, but if I'm thinking about it again, just for a regular human being out here that says, I think I would like to move to XYZ and I'd like to do this, what would your advice be? Would you say, I think you need to hold up. I think that you need to go with that side of it. I think you need to ground logically. That sounds kind of a loaded
Yeah,
thought.
no, I have a good answer. I haven't, well, that was a good answer, but I have an answer. But first
Okay,
I want to like acknowledge like how you just succinctly packed up my life that made it sound like it makes sense. And you have no idea how much I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, okay. I, as an outsider looking in, I understand it's never what you close the doors and you don't see all this stuff. But I will tell you one thing that I do know about Tisha as a person, everybody listening, watching this, she does have your genuine best interest at heart when your creative elements and your healing as a whole to your core comes to roost. You really do. And so maybe that's what I'm seeing, that you're just very, very open about that. You're very willing to share that part of yourself, and you're very practical as well as creative. So I think grounding in that practical side gives people permission to explore the creative side. Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's my most recent book is called Missing Element, Hidden Strength, and it uses the 5 elements as a template for the creative process. So with each of the elements being a stage, and also have a journal available that you can kind of like almost like a workbook kind of thing. And so to go back to your question, the 5 elements manifesting journal.
Okay.
Oh, the book is Missing Element, Hidden Strength.
Missing element, hidden strength. Okay.
That's right.
That sounds like that's right up my alley. Journaling and the whole thing. Yes, for sure. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. And so going back to your question about how do you get from here to there, the 5 elements is a template that nature has given us for the creative process of going from idea to an actual tangible product, service, whatever your end goal is. And those 5 elements give us the perfect template for that process. Yes. And so that's what those 2, the book and the journal / workbook, are helpful for.
Yeah. And so it's helping people to understand the practical side of it, of what is already tangibly around you, like you said, with what you got going on up here in terms of your creative element and
Mhm.
how to bring that forward. Oh,
Yep.
I love it. And a good workbook to go along with it. Just, yes, puts the stamp right on it for me
That's right.
anyways. I don't know. So in our soul goals talk, I would wager to bet that I mean, you're a prime example of following your soul's goals. Everything that you have done, that you've explained so far, has kind of been a really nice unfolding of where you are. I'm interested to know where you would like to be by the end of, say, 2024, by the end of next year, this time next year.
So I've been working on a memoir for a few years. I would love to, number one, have that complete, which is a feat within itself, and perhaps have a book deal by then.
Okay.
Yeah. Professionally, so I have a secret goal that I've not, a secret soul goal. Is that part of your website?
Yeah, it's
Soul
not,
goal?
that's a great idea. Secret soul goals.
I
Okay.
want to work at Hello Sunshine,
Okay.
Reese Witherspoon's company,
Okay.
and acquire books for screen. I'm just going to put that out. If this comes true at the end of 2024, then your podcast is the portal for your soul goal.
Oh, I just got chills. It's happening.
Okay.
It's happening. We're
Or
marking
something better.
this
Or something better.
this is October 16th, 2023. I'm time stamping it right now.
All
By
right.
this time next year. Hello Sunshine. Tisha Morris. Yes, ma'am. I love it. So in terms of wrapping everything up, I love having the conversation with you. I could talk for days about all of this
Me
stuff. I
too.
think it's so intriguing. But we need to wrap it up here a little bit. I love just showing your personality a little bit more. So I want to throw some rapid fire questions at
Okay,
you.
let's go.
Okay. All right. First one. What object do you misplace or lose the most?
Oh my gosh. Would I be unlikable or unrelatable if I said I never lose things?
No, no, you're being honest is what you're being.
I'm
Okay.
not a loser. I'm not a loser, but I'm always I've always been with people who lose things. So I'm more of the
Okay.
finder of objects than
Well,
the
there you
loser.
go.
Yeah.
It's the yin and the yang.
Yes.
So is your wife the loser of objects?
Yeah.
She is.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we won't. I'm not going to ask you what she loses most, so we won't pull her into that.
Sunglasses.
Oh, it's sunglasses. Okay, she
She has
just got
like
it.
5, 6 pairs. For some reason, they're never anywhere.
My husband used to wear readers until he had some lens work done and his eye work done, and I mean, they'd be on top of his head.
Yep.
Where's my glasses? Yeah, he's the catalyst of that for sure. All right, next question. Do you know how to perform a magic trick?
I do not, but I'm like the best audience for magic tricks because I am so like, even if you show me how you're doing it, I can't. My mind does not work like that.
You wouldn't be
So
able
I'm
to go.
so impressed with
Yeah.
magic tricks.
I used to watch those things where they would chop the lady in half in the rolling carts at my grandparents. So I'd be there spending the night at their house, and this magic show would come on Friday nights. And I was so intrigued. But again, I'm the same way. I'm like
I
sitting
know.
there, like jaw dropped. How are they cutting her in half?
I
Her feet are
know.
moving. So is
I
her
still
head.
haven't figured that one out. I was on stage once at Opryland as a kid, and they had me on stage as the person in the thing. And
What?
they did, and yeah, as like from the audience, like as a
Yes.
audience participant. And so I went up there. I was like 8 years old, and they like as soon as they did the thing, I like did my head like that, and the whole audience freaked out because they thought it was an accident.
Oh, I would have too. Oh my God. Okay, so do you remember back to that incident in terms of how you felt? Did you feel like you were separated into two? Because I've never
No,
met
I was
anybody.
just no, I trusted the chopper and I knew somehow it was a magic trick.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to freak the audience out, and sure enough I did.
Sounds like you did. All right, next question. What celebrity or high profile individual, it could be past or present, would you like to have dinner with and why?
Well, definitely cliche, but Oprah. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Does
Yes.
it get any better?
I don't think it does. No, I have multiple Oprah journals and books and things around my house that just, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing in your office?
Ooh, let me survey. Well, probably, okay, this is not one thing, although I'm going to make it one thing, is my bookshelf with all my favorite books.
Yes.
And so my books are, so my bookshelf because of the books.
Do you hang on to the books or do you feng shui them away when they need to go?
Feng shui them away when they need to go.
Ah,
yeah.
That's is that a June Carter Cash deal? She used to do that, I think.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
cool.
I think somebody told me that when she would read a book and she was done with it, she would give it to somebody else. She would pass it on.
Yeah, there's a lot of those like little library people have in front of their house where you can put books and take books. But I keep the ones that are like, for me, considered classics or reference books or my favorites. But other than that, I recirculate.
Yeah, it's perfect. And your last one for today, how do you want your loved ones to remember you one day?
Gosh, someone with integrity, someone helpful, someone kind, someone truthful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would totally agree with that. And I believe that you're walking that walk right now. So I would feel like anybody would say those things about you,
thank you, Dawn.
Naturally and absolutely truthfully, for sure. It has been awesome talking to you today. I could go down the rabbit hole all day
I know, this has been so fun. I wish every podcast interview was as fun as this.
Oh, do you want to know, before we wrap up, I went down a rabbit hole of Netflix and Depp versus Heard. I got to watch it on a 4-hour flight I was on. And Tisha, you were on that.
I know.
You were a legal consultant. I was like shaking my phone, and the person beside me was like, "What's wrong with this?" Like, oh my God, I had nobody around me to tell that I know her. So cool. So cool. Yeah. So all the great things that you have done, that you will continue to do. Hello, sunshine.
Hello.
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 We're doing it. We're doing it. We'll check in about that by this time next year. It's going to happen before then. I'm just predicting that one, but yeah. Well, love to you, love to your wife. And I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day.
Well done. Thank you.
And, you are so welcome. And I hope we talk again soon.
Me too. Have a great day.
Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. If you have an idea for an interview or you would like to share your own story, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message at dawn@thesoulgoals.com. If you enjoyed today's podcast, I'd love for you to leave a review and to consider following and subscribing to the show. With weekly releases, there is always another interesting story to be heard. I do hope that today's guests and their words have helped to bring some extra light to your day and encouraged you to find a deeper space of your very own soul goals. Until next time, friends, remember that everyone has a story and every story matters.